impossible challenge. Captain Elena Vasquez guided her cargo hauler through the final approach to Haven's Rest, watching the massive space station grow larger through her viewport. The station rotated slowly against the backdrop of distant stars, its docking bays glowing with the soft blue light of atmospheric shields. She had made this run dozens of times, but something felt different today. The usual chatter from station traffic control was terse, almost hostile. "Cargo vessel, steady hand. You are cleared for docking bay 7, came the crisp voice through her comm system. The speaker's accent was unmistakably Krillian, with those characteristic clicking consonants. "Prepare for full inspection upon arrival." Elena frowned. Full inspection? That usually meant trouble. She keyed her microphone. "Haven Control, this is Captain Vasquez. Is there a problem? My cargo manifest was pre-approved." A pause. Then, "New security protocols, Captain. Recent piracy incidents have made the Council nervous. All human vessels are subject to enhanced screening." The words stung, but Elena kept her voice level. "Understood, Control. Steady hand is complying." As her ship settled into the docking clamps with a series of metallic thuds, Elena could see the reception committee waiting for her. 3 Krillians in security uniforms stood near the airlock, their forearms crossed in a gesture that somehow managed to look both official and dismissive. Behind them loomed a massive Tremok, all 6 legs and armored hide, while a familiar human figure in military dress uniform watched from the side. Elena's jaw tightened. Commander Thane, her old rival from the Terran Defense Force. What was he doing here? The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and Elena stepped onto the station's deck. The artificial gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth normal, typical for a station designed to accommodate multiple species. The lead Krillian, distinguished by the silver rank insignia on his dark blue uniform, stepped forward, his crystalline eyes, literally crystalline, refracting light in rainbow patterns, fixed on her with mechanical precision. "Captain Vasquez, I am Security Chief Zixtal. Welcome to Haven's Rest. I trust your journey was without incident." "Smooth sailing, Chief," Elena replied, extending her hand. Zixtal looked at it for a moment before awkwardly shaking with one of his 4 hands. The gesture seemed forced, diplomatic rather than friendly. "Excellent. We will now inspect your cargo. Given recent difficulties with human traders, we must be thorough." Elena felt her temper rising but kept it in check. "What kind of difficulties?" Commander Thane stepped forward, his medals catching the station's lights. "Pirates have been hitting cargo runs along the rim sectors. 3 ships in the last month, all human vessels." His smile was cold. "Some people are starting to wonder if it's an inside job." "That's a serious accusation, Thane." Elena's voice was steady, but her eyes flashed dangerously. "Just stating facts, Elena. Humans have always been opportunistic." The Tremok beside them rumbled something in his native language, a sound like boulders grinding together. Zixtal translated without being asked. "Gorth suggests that humans lack the precision necessary for legitimate trade operations. Your species tends toward, what is the term, quick and dirty solutions." Elena looked around at the small crowd that had gathered. Word traveled fast on a space station, and apparently the arrival of a human cargo hauler was entertainment. She could see representatives of 6 species, all watching with varying degrees of interest and suspicion. "Is that so?" Elena said quietly. "You think humans lack precision?" Zixtal's 4 shoulders moved in what might have been a shrug. "Your species is known for adaptability, yes, for finding unconventional solutions to problems. But precision, careful, methodical work, these are not typically human strengths." A murmur went through the crowd. Elena felt dozens of alien eyes on her, judging, measuring. Some looked curious, others skeptical. A few seemed almost sympathetic. "What would it take to change your mind?" Elena asked. "I beg your pardon?" "You clearly have doubts about human capabilities. What would it take to prove you wrong?" Zixtal's crystalline eyes refracted the light in complex patterns as he considered. Around them, the crowd pressed closer, sensing drama. Even Gorth's massive head lowered to better hear the conversation. "An interesting proposition," the security chief said slowly. "Very well. A test of precision. If you can demonstrate the accuracy your species claims to possess under conditions that matter, then perhaps the enhanced security screenings for human vessels could be reconsidered." Commander Thane laughed harshly. "Elena, you always were too proud for your own good. Walk away from this." "What kind of test?" Elena ignored Thane completely, keeping her focus on Zixtal. The Krillian's four hands moved independently as he gestured, a distinctly alien mannerism that Elena had learned to read over years of dealing with different species. He was thinking, calculating, probably designing something impossible. The cargo bay loading systems use precision targeting to place containers. The mechanism must hit targets no larger than a few centimeters, at ranges up to 200 meters, while compensating for station rotation and the movement of incoming ships. Zixtal paused, his eyes reflecting light like prisms. "No human has ever successfully operated our loading systems without computer assistance. And if you can demonstrate the same level of precision that our automated systems require, using manual control only, then I will personally recommend to the Council that human vessels receive preferential inspection status." The crowd was buzzing now, excited whispers in a dozen different languages. Elena could feel their anticipation, their certainty that she would fail. Only Commander Thane looked worried, which somehow made her more confident. "Deal," she said, extending her hand again. This time Zixtal shook it with all four hands simultaneously. The loading bay was a cathedral of industrial architecture with overhead cranes that could lift multi-ton containers stretching into the darkness above. The targeting system Zixtal indicated looked simple enough, a manual control station with joysticks and displays showing range, wind speed, and gravitational compensation factors. "The target is there." Zixtal pointed to a red circle painted on the far wall, barely visible at this distance. 230 meters. The projectile you must use is this." He held up a small metal sphere, about the size of a marble. "The loading clamps use these for calibration. They must be placed within a 2-centimeter tolerance." Elena took the sphere, feeling its weight. Around them, the crowd had grown. Word was spreading throughout the station that a human was attempting the impossible precision test. She could see cargo handlers, station technicians, traders from multiple species, all gathered to watch her fail. She approached the control station and studied the displays. The readouts were in standard galactic, thankfully, though some of the concepts were unfamiliar. Station rotation created a constant drift factor. The artificial gravity had slight variations that would affect projectile trajectory. The target itself was mounted on a section of wall that flexed slightly with the station's structure. "These systems aren't designed for precision," Elena murmured, running her hands over the controls. "They're designed for brute force cargo movement." "Precisely why no human has succeeded," Zixtal observed. "Your species lacks the patience for such calculations." Elena studied the target through the scope mounted on the control station. At this distance, the red circle looked tiny, wavering slightly as the station's rotation created minute vibrations. She could feel the eyes of dozens of beings on her, waiting for her to fail. She thought about her years piloting cargo haulers through asteroid fields, threading the needle between space debris at velocities that would terrify most beings. She remembered her training in the Defense Force before politics and personality conflicts had driven her to civilian life. Most of all, she thought about the way aliens looked at humans, as if they were useful but ultimately inferior, good for manual labor and dangerous jobs, but lacking the sophistication for truly challenging work. Elena loaded the metal sphere into the targeting mechanism and began her calculations. She ignored the murmurs from the crowd, ignored Commander Thane's skeptical expression, ignored everything except the mathematics of trajectory, rotation, and gravity. The first shot missed by 3 meters. The crowd erupted in laughter and alien sounds that probably meant the same thing. Elena heard Gorth's rumbling chuckle, saw Zixtal's four-armed shrug of resignation. Purgate! P.S. We should conclude this demonstration, the security chief suggested diplomatically. I get 3 attempts, Elena said firmly. Standard testing protocol. She studied the impact point, mentally adjusting her calculations. The station's rotation was more complex than she had initially thought. Not just a simple spin, but a slight wobble that created additional variables. The targeting system's computer assistance would have compensated automatically, but she was doing this manually. The second shot was closer, 1 meter off target. The laughter died down, replaced by whispers. Elena could feel the shift in the crowd's attention. They were starting to think she might actually have a chance. She loaded the third sphere, her hands steady despite the pressure. This time she closed her eyes, feeling the station's movement through the vibrations in the deck plates beneath her feet. She waited, timing the wobble, calculating the exact moment when all variables would align. Elena opened her eyes, adjusted her aim by fractions of degrees, and fired. The small metal sphere arced across the loading bay, its trajectory invisible but true. 230 meters away, it struck the red circle with a sharp metallic ping that echoed through the suddenly silent chamber. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Zixtal strode across the bay to examine the target, his 4 arms working independently as he measured the impact point with precision instruments. 1.7 centimeters from center, he announced, his voice carrying clearly in the silence. Within tolerance. The crowd exploded into noise, cheers from some, angry discussions from others, and what sounded like betting settlements being concluded. Elena allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. That's when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the loading bay as the station's emergency klaxon wailed. The artificial gravity fluctuated for a moment as power systems shifted to combat configuration. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Elena could see small craft approaching the station, but these weren't cargo haulers or passenger transports. "Pirates," Zixtal said grimly, speaking into his communication device in rapid Krillian. 3 ships, military-grade weapons. They're targeting the cargo bays. The crowd began to panic, beings of multiple species rushing toward the exit corridors. Elena found herself pushed against the targeting controls as the mass exodus began. "The cargo!" someone screamed. "They're after the shipments from the Centauri run." Elena looked around the chaos, her mind racing. The pirates weren't here for random destruction. They were after something specific. And if they succeeded, the blame would fall on human traders again. The fragile cooperation between species that places like Haven's Rest represented would crumble. She grabbed Zixtal's arm as he coordinated the evacuation. "Chief, how long until station security can respond?" "Too long," he replied grimly. "The patrol ships are hours away. By then—" Elena looked up at the massive cargo crane suspended from the bay's ceiling, then at the targeting system she had just mastered. An idea began to form. Crazy, impossible, but maybe just human enough to work. The precision test was over. The real test was about to begin. When precision meets purpose, the pirate ships grew larger in the observation windows as they approached Haven's Rest, their weapon systems glowing with ominous light. Elena watched them for a moment, her tactical training automatically analyzing their formation and approach vectors. 3 ships, a larger command vessel flanked by 2 smaller raiders. Classic piracy formation. Overwhelming firepower concentrated on specific targets. "They're going for the main cargo storage areas," she told Zixtal, who was still trying to coordinate the evacuation through his communicator. "Look at their approach angle. They'll dock at bays 4 through 6. The security chief's crystalline eyes fixed on her. "How can you know this?" "Because that's where the most valuable cargo is stored, and because I would do the same thing if I were them." Elena was already moving toward the crane control systems. "Chief, I need you to trust me. Can you clear the loading bay of civilians?" What are you planning? Elena looked up at the massive cargo handling equipment suspended from the ceiling. Each crane was capable of lifting 50-ton containers with precision accurate to centimeters. The targeting systems she had just demonstrated mastery of were designed to control this equipment. Something stupid, she said grimly. Something that will probably get us all killed. Something very, very human. Zixtal followed her gaze upward, and his forearms moved in what Elena had learned was the Krillian equivalent of sudden understanding. The cargo cranes. You cannot possibly be serious. Dead serious. Elena was already at the main control station, her hands flying over the familiar controls. These systems are designed to move containers, but they're also designed to place them with extreme precision. What's the difference between placing a container and dropping one on something you want to hit? The first pirate ship was close enough now that Elena could see its weapon ports opening. In minutes, they would begin cutting through the station's hull to reach the cargo holds. Standard piracy tactics called for speed and overwhelming force. Get in, grab what you could carry, and get out before station security could respond. This is insane, Commander Thane said, a ring at Elena's shoulder. Somehow he had remained in the loading bay while others evacuated. You're talking about using industrial equipment as weapons. You have a better idea? Elena didn't look up from her calculations. The crane systems were more complex than the simple targeting mechanism she had used for the precision test. Each crane had multiple articulated joints, grabbing mechanisms, and gyroscopic stabilizers. But the basic principle was the same: put something exactly where it needed to be. Through the observation windows, she could see the lead pirate vessel extending its docking tube toward the station. In combat configuration, the station's defensive systems should have been able to prevent unauthorized docking, but pirates this organized had probably compromised the automated defenses before approaching. "Gorth," Elena called to the massive Tremok, who had also remained behind. "I need you to help me load containers into the crane systems. Heavy ones." The alien's 6 legs carried him toward the cargo stacks with surprising speed. His natural strength would be invaluable for this desperate plan. Meanwhile, Zixtal was speaking rapidly into his communicator, apparently explaining the situation to Station Command. "They are willing to attempt your plan," he told Elena after a moment. "The alternative is to allow the pirates free access to our cargo holds, but you understand that if this fails..." "If this fails, we'll be dead anyway," Elena replied grimly. She activated the first crane system, feeling the massive machinery come to life above her. The targeting display showed the approaching pirate ships, their positions updated in real time by the station's sensors. The first container Gorth loaded was a standard shipping unit filled with processed metals from the mining colonies, 40 tons of refined titanium and platinum alloys. Elena looked at the display showing the lead pirate ship's position and began her calculations. Range: 400 meters and closing. Target velocity: approximately 50 mph. Meters per second on approach vector. Station rotation compensation: minimal at this distance. Gravitational effects from the station's artificial gravity generators: significant but predictable. The pirate ship was almost in docking range when Elena triggered the release mechanism. 40 tons of processed metals, accelerated by the crane's launch system and guided by precision targeting, shot out from the loading bay like a projectile from some impossible cannon. The container tumbled slowly as it crossed the distance between station and ship, its trajectory calculated to intercept the pirate vessel's approach path. The pirates saw it coming. Elena watched their ship try to maneuver away, but at close range and high velocity, there wasn't time for evasive action. The container struck the ship's port engine compartment with devastating effect, the impact visible even from the station as explosion flames bloomed in the vacuum of space. "Direct hit," Zixtal reported unnecessarily. The pirate ship was spinning out of control, its docking attempt forgotten as the crew fought to prevent catastrophic system failure. But there were still 2 more ships. "Loading crane 2, Elena called to Gorth, who was already moving another container into position. This one was filled with agricultural products from the farming worlds, lower mass, but easier to accelerate to higher velocity. The second pirate ship was approaching from a different angle, having observed the fate of its companion. The pilot was being more cautious, using evasive maneuvers and trying to present a smaller target profile. Elena smiled grimly. Evasive maneuvers were just another targeting problem to solve. She waited, tracking the ship's movement pattern, identifying the rhythm of its evasions. Most pilots fell into predictable patterns when under stress, left, right, up, down, but always with mathematical relationships that could be calculated. When she fired the second container, she aimed not at where the ship was, but at where it would be in 8 seconds when the container reached that point in space. The pirate pilot, following his evasive pattern perfectly, flew directly into the projectile's path. The agricultural container burst on impact, filling space around the pirate ship with a cloud of grain and vegetables. More importantly, the impact damaged the ship's navigation systems, sending it spinning away from the station. "2 down," Elena said, already loading the third crane system. "1 to go." The final pirate ship was hanging back now, its crew clearly reconsidering their attack plan. Elena could see weapon ports glowing as they charged their energy systems. If they couldn't dock safely, they might resort to simply blasting through the station's hull. "They're going to fire on the station," Zixtal observed, reading the same tactical signs Elena had noticed. "Not if I can help it." Elena studied the third container Gorth had loaded. This one was different, a specialized cargo pod filled with reactive chemicals used in terraforming operations. If it breached in space. "Chief, I need you to evacuate everyone from this section of the station, right now." "What are you planning?" "The kind of stupid human trick that either saves everyone or kills us all." Elena's hands moved over the controls, calculating trajectory, timing, and chemical reaction rates. "This container is filled with atmospheric processors. If they breach in vacuum, they'll create a massive chemical reaction." She aimed not at the pirate ship itself, but at the space just in front of it. When the container reached the calculated intercept point, Elena triggered its emergency release mechanism remotely. The chemical explosion that followed was visible from 3 solar systems away. When the light cleared, the third pirate ship was drifting helplessly, its systems overloaded by the electromagnetic pulse from the chemical reaction. Elena quickly activated the station's tractor beam systems to pull the disabled vessel into a safe orbit for boarding by security teams. In the sudden silence that followed, Elena became aware that she was breathing hard. Her hands were shaking slightly from adrenaline, and she realized that dozens of beings were staring at her from the observation galleries above the loading bay. "Well," Commander Thane said finally, "that was the most reckless, irresponsible, impossible thing I've ever seen." "Did it work?" Elena asked. 3 pirate ships disabled, minimal damage to the station, and cargo holds secure. Zixtal's 4 arms moved in complex patterns that Elena recognized as extreme approval. "Captain Vasquez, what you have demonstrated today goes far beyond precision. You have shown adaptability, tactical thinking, and the kind of creative problem-solving that humans are known for," Elena suggested. "That saved all our lives," the security chief corrected. "The council will hear of this. I believe the enhanced security screenings for human vessels will not only be discontinued, but humans will be offered preferential docking status at all stations in this sector." Elena nodded her thanks, then looked around at the crowd of aliens still watching from above. Beings from dozens of species, all of whom had just witnessed something unprecedented. A human turning cargo handling equipment into an improvised weapon system to defend a multi-species station. "There is one thing I don't understand," Zixtal continued. "The precision required for those shots, the calculations, the timing. How did you manage such accuracy under combat conditions?" Elena smiled. "Same way I made that first shot in your test, Chief. I stopped thinking like the targeting computer and started thinking like a human. Sometimes precision isn't about perfect calculations. Sometimes it's about understanding that the universe is chaotic and working with that chaos instead of fighting it." She looked up at the cargo cranes, still suspended from the ceiling like sleeping giants. In a few hours, they would go back to their regular job of moving containers and loading ships. But today, they had been something more, proof that human ingenuity could turn any tool into a solution, any problem into an opportunity. Besides, Elena added with a grin, we humans have always been good at making things up as we go along. The crowd above erupted in what sounded suspiciously like applause. Though with a dozen different species involved, it was hard to be sure. Elena decided to take it as approval. After all, it had worked. As the station returned to normal operations and the damaged pirate ships were secured, Elena found herself thinking about the real lesson of the day. It wasn't about precision or human capabilities, or even about proving aliens wrong. It was about something simpler and more important. When different species worked together, when they combined their unique strengths and perspectives, they could accomplish impossible things. Elena's human adaptability, combined with Zixtal's systematic planning and Gorth's raw strength, had created something none of them could have achieved alone. Maybe that was the real point of places like Haven's Rest, not just to trade goods, but to trade ideas, to learn from each other, to discover that what made each species different also made them stronger together. Elena smiled as she watched the first cargo ships begin to dock again, their crews eager to resume normal operations. The universe was full of challenges, but it was also full of opportunities for those creative enough to see them. And humans, as she had proven today, were very good at being creative.